Here we're working on the combustion chamber itself. This will be the primary outer layer of the combustion chamber. And you can see here I've got the marks. I've got it 10.5 inches long, 3.25 inches wide. You can see right now I'm marking out where my drill holes are going to be. So you've just watched me make most of my measurements and my marks here on our combustion chamber. This is the main outer wall of the combustion chamber. So right now what we have is a mark up about 1/4 inch from the leading edge here, and this will be the compressor side of the combustion chamber. We're going to have the tightest hole group here. Every 1/4 inch we're going to drill a hole. They're going to be really small holes. Next line down here we have 1 inch spacings between each one of our holes. Then back to here we have a 1/2 inch spacing at our center line, back to a 1 inch spacing, and then back to a 1/2 inch spacing. We're going to leave about a 1/2 inch between that set of holes at the end. This will be the tail end of the combustion chamber. From that to the actual edge of the combustion chamber ring itself. So there's about a 1/2 inch gap there with no holes at the very end, which I'll show you here once we start drilling it. I just got done showing you shearing out the outer wall of the burn chamber. Now I'm going to take a 3/32 drill bit and do our first set of holes, and that's the 1/4 inch spaced holes towards the compressor side of the burn chamber. So here we go. Now we're done with the top set of holes. We're going to drill our second set, and that is going to be with a 3/16 inch drill bit spaced 1 inch apart. So here we go.
So now we're working on our third set of holes back. These are spaced 1/2 inch apart. We're going to use a 9/64 drill bit to do that. So here we go.
We're going to work on our fourth set of holes. We're going to use the same 9/64 drill bit for that.
Each spaced 1 inch apart.
So now we're working on our final set of holes. These are going to be a 1/8 inch drill bit hole. I'm going to put them every 1/2 inch. You can see the marks there. So let's go ahead and drill those. So I rolled the piece that we drilled all the holes in into a circle. I've seam welded that together. Once I got that shape, I set that down on a piece of flat stainless. I traced around it, and with that tracing I cut out a disc here for this side and another disc here for this side. I centered those discs and drilled a hole and then welded them onto our burn chamber. What I'm doing now is working on the actual drive propeller, as you can tell. And the drive propeller itself was designed to be driven with a force aiming this direction, not coming straight on like this, like our engine's going to be. So it had a much longer set of paddles here, and I'm taking this bench grinder and I'm grinding it back. See here, where I'm going to grind down to is right where the end of the paddle is. Right there, you can kind of see where the end of the curvature happens and starts going downhill. So I'm going to bring that right up to that point, right about where my fingertip is. Alright, so there we go, folks. You can see how far up I've brought those paddles. There at the end I showed you rolling out some of the extra parts we're going to need. This is the outer wall of the burn chamber. This is going to slide over our burn chamber. That's going to allow the air to come from our compressor fan down into the wall between the two of them, that air gap between them. Over here I have a smaller inner piece that I've rolled that's a 1-inch tube. Those are 1/4-inch drill bit holes, and they're spaced about 1 inch apart on the flat sheet. Right now what I'm doing is building the piece that holds our bushings into place inside of the center of the engine. This little piece you see right here sits right in the center of our burn chamber, and that piece in the center holds those bushings that you see here for our drive shaft that goes through the middle of it. That way our compressor fan and our drive fan are in line with each other right down the center of the engine. I just want to show you the air gap. So you can see an air gap between that faceplate and the actual burn chamber. Now that we got done mounting the drive shaft with all the bushings and everything into our burn chamber there, I need a way to stick that drive shaft end that's going to hold the compressor fan out of the front of our case here. This is the outer case of the engine. This is going to be the faceplate that gets welded onto that case just like that. So our compressor fan's going to sit over here. We're going to have our diffusers on this, the holes and everything there. I'm trying to mount our rotor to the burn chamber here, which will then be mounted to the outer case. And one of the things I needed to do is be able to have a mounting point to the inner rotor holder to the outer case itself for the burn chamber. And this ring that you're looking at is what I've been able to come up with. So I've used those L brackets I showed you earlier. I've trimmed them down a little bit. I've cut a circle out in the middle of this disc. I cut the outside to fit the diameter I was going to need for the front faceplate here to the burn chamber. And then I've mounted those to those L brackets. So if I bring that up close, you can see there. Just cut those off, riveted those through with a stainless rivet. One of the other parts of this I needed to have was the ability to mount all of this to the face of the outer case here. And that's going to be this ring right here. That actually goes on before we put on this other ring. The next piece of this here is going to be the nozzle, the thrust nozzle around our drive fan there. Just showed you a time lapse of putting this all together. I've thrown some rivets in the back just to show you the engine from the side. The only thing missing from the combustion chamber is the actual outer case here. We've got the front plate, the back plate on there that'll actually make the seal on either side of the combustion chamber itself. We have our actual burn ring in the middle there. We have our compressor fan out here in the front. We have our thrust collar around the drive fan here in the back. Go ahead and turn that. So there you go. There is our full engine inside of its combustion chamber. You can see the drive fan coming out of the thrust collar into where our afterburner is going to be there. Just showed you the engine without the outer part of the case put on. We just had the two flat outer discs, the front and the back face there. We had the inner part of the burn chamber, the thrust collar, and everything set up and ready to go. I've now welded on our outer part of the burn chamber. This will allow the airflow to go between this chamber and the inner part of the burn chamber with all the holes in it, and then into the combustion chamber there. You can see I've just tack welded all the way around on the back side. So our back side of our combustion chamber, the inner part of that is now permanently mounted to the outer case. And then here on the front, you can see a little ring going around. And what I've done is just used a piece of flat strap. I rolled that so it would fit perfectly around our cylinder. That rolls over the top of the two pieces and then is welded onto there. And that gave us a airtight seal band around it. And then I just put our front disc over that, and I've now tack welded that front disc all the way around, so it's now permanently attached to that ring. So we can pull this off of there. Once I remove the actual compressor fan, we can slide that up off of there, allowing us access to all our bushings and everything inside of our engine. So if you need to do any replacement, that'll also allow us a little bit later here in the project to do all the mounting inside of there for our fuel and our oil lines. Real quickly here, I just want to pull off our cap so you can see what's underneath there. You can see the air gap now between the inner part of our combustion chamber there and the outer part of our combustion chamber. So just got done tack welding on our afterburner collar there. You can see it. Just want to give you a look down into it there. So there you go. There's a area there between the actual thrust collar around our drive fan and the actual afterburner collar, and we're going to install our fuel ring down into that area. Next, we need to build basically the intake to our engine. Now that we've got the back end, the main body, and all the combustion chamber done, we need to build an intake. So we're going to start out with the very center of that intake where it matches up with the edge of the compressor fan. And I need something I can sculpt, so we're going to use aluminum. This nice thick piece of aluminum tubing. This is the exact diameter of the outside edge of the top of that compressor fan, so it's the exact size we're going to need. We'll use these screws to bolt it on in the end from whatever I design. Right now what I'm going to do is basically sculpt this inside edge to fit the compressor that shapes to, and then I'll wrap the outside here with more thinner aluminum until I get the thickness I need to match the entire width of that compressor, and then I'll sculpt that aluminum with the Dremel tool until I get it the right shape.